tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long. Let's get started with animation. Hi folks, today we'll talk about two things which are closely related about the turntable animation and the grouping, the group and the turntable. This is a turntable animation, sort of. In reality, it's my record player, obviously. And here is an animation which shows us the Maya turntable. I have this robot character in the center of the scene, and the camera accelerates and rotates 360 degrees around that robot. And at the end, it starts again, slowly speeding up, and towards the end, it's slowing down. We use this command all the time when we're interested in rendering, for example, a scenery which we created, rendering the view from all kinds of angles. Let me create a new scene and show you how the default setting of the turntable animation goes. We create some kind of object which is not totally symmetrical. I'll go to the Make NURBS sphere and just open this sphere a little bit. That's basically all there is. I don't touch the my viewport at all. I just go to Animation. And here you have Visualize, and here you have the Create Turntable Animation. When you use the option box and reset the settings, you see that it's set to 24 frames clockwise. When we apply this, we have a 24 frame long rotation, very fast. And then it stops. Let's delete this. It's actually this group here, so it's gone. Now we create another turntable animation. I'll show you something which does not work. Let's type in 200 frames and apply. I get an error message. The error message says we haven't selected an object for the turntable animation to turn around about. So we need to select this, and then we apply it, and then it's good. And we see the turntable camera number 1 here. We're looking through that turntable camera number 1, and it does exactly what we expected. Actually, we can extend this to 200 frames, and then it's basically a loop, because nothing changes with this sphere. The reason why it starts slowly and ends slowly is something I covered in several tutorials, but I'll just give you a hint. You select that group, you go to Windows and Animation Editors and the Graph Editor, and here you see this line. This line shows the slowly starting and then accelerating and then stopping with a deceleration, and we can fix this by clicking here. So now we have a really continuous animation. It doesn't slow down now, it just keeps on. If we have a look at this group, why is it not a camera? It's supposed to be a turntable camera. Why is it a group? Because when we open it, we see a turntable camera number 1, and it's hidden. Where is it? We need the perspective window in order to get an overview of the scene, including that camera, because currently we're looking through that camera, so we don't see that camera. That's obvious. So I press and hold the space bar, and I go to Panels, Perspective, and I want to see the perspective window. This is the perspective window. Here I can navigate freely, and when I run the animation, I don't see anything because there's no camera in the scene. When I unhide it by pressing H, I don't see the camera either. It's just not there. And the reason is that I need to make it visible, made explicitly invisible. And when you select the camera, the turntable camera now, you have display, and here you have object display. This one is the abstract node. So when I open the display handle, I see visibility is tagged on, so it's active. But here in the object display, I don't have the visibility checked. And when I check it, I should be able to see that camera. Where is it? It's right here, very far away. Why is it so far away? Because we started from a perspective of this half sphere from quite far away. That's the reason why this camera is so far away. And this is the typical turntable animation. Let us have a look at this group and the turntable camera. The turntable camera has the abstract node, the real turntable camera node. This is about the beauty, how it looks, and this is about the placement. I see these things grayed out. That means they are locked. I cannot change anything. When I press the key W, I see the arrows here, but I cannot move them because they are locked. That's what this is about. When I go to the group, however, I see that we have a keyframed parameter, and that's the rotation in not X, but in Y. This is the up rotation. This is this vector, so we rotate the group, not the camera, around this axis. This is the way the rotation goes. Exactly what we see. So the trick is to create a group and animate the Y axis, the rotation around Y, and the group sits in the center of the scene, or at the center of our object of interest, and the camera is just doing nothing. So let's create a new scene, and I'll show you how we can build our own turntable camera. We first of all create something which is called an empty group, because we need a group, and the group obviously is empty. Where is it? When we press the key W, we see it's in the center of the scene. We could actually move it now if we wanted to, but we don't want to move it right at this time. Now we create something else, namely a camera. Create cameras, just a simple camera. It sits there, and we move it a little bit to the side. So we have a group and a camera. And when we want a turntable animation now, we need to make that camera a child of that group. We do this by parenting. Under Edit, you have this parent command with the key P. But what I prefer to do, it's basically the same thing. I select the camera, and with the middle mouse, I just drag it over here to the null group. Now the null has a plus, and the camera is a child of that group. Now when I press the key E for rotation and I rotate the group, not the camera rotates with that group. That's the whole trick of the turntable animation, which you find here. That's the whole trick. It's really the whole trick. There's nothing else about it. So this very simple hierarchy does the whole job. When you have an object like this cube, and you move the cube over here and over there, how do you create a turntable animation then? Well, the typical thing would be to position that group right here. And now you rotate the group around that object. The animation goes like this. You can either set keyframes, right mouse click, set a key, or you type in an expression, equals frame. That means the rotation in Y is 1 degree at frame 1, and 100 degrees at frame 100, and 360 degrees, one rotation, at frame number 360. So when I do this, I extend the frame range to 360, and I have an animation with that expression around that cube. The nice thing about the expression, as opposed to the keyframe animation, is that we don't have to care about keys and the ending of that animation because it goes on forever. 720 degrees is the second rotation, etc. Now, what does it look like when we look through that camera? There are two ways to achieve this look through the camera, and I'll show you one of them. Press and hold the spacebar panels and you go to camera. Let me show you the other way. That's a middle mouse dragging this camera into the viewport, and now we're looking through that camera. So there's always several ways to navigate in the scene. This is our camera rotating around the cube. It actually looks as if the cube was rotating, but it isn't. In our special setup, it's slightly different from the setup of the default visualization turntable camera, because we have the freedom to move and rotate our camera. So let's move the camera up by 2 units. You see the camera moves up, but it doesn't rotate down. And we can do this here. Go to the very beginning, and it's the rotation. You see that in the x-axis. It's this axis, and I want to rotate the camera so it looks down. That's the x-axis, and I do it right here. This is a rotation of the camera now. So the animation looks different now because I have a view slightly above that cube. Now it's obvious that we're rotating around the cube. We're doing a turntable animation around that cube, and not the cube is rotating in front of us. If I move the null group somewhere else, and for that purpose I, for example, go to the top window and I move it, say, over here. You see the camera moves with that group object, and the camera rotates around that group object. That means the camera is not rotating exactly around that cube. And you see the camera is not focusing on the cube totally, so the cube will be out of sight for a certain period of time. So this is a turntable animation around a point somewhere else, not around the cube, but it can be quite interesting and handy to do this as well. Just for you to know, we just changed the position of that null group. Now finally, I want to show you something which makes use of our setup here with this very flexible group and camera animation. And I want to show you how we can deal with a moving object. So let's create a new scene. Go to Windows and the content browser. In previous versions of Maya, you found that under General Editors. Now we're in late 2021. You find it right here. And under FBX, actually Animation, Motion Capture FBX, you find several FBX animations. I double click on the walk, FBX. This is a skeleton which is huge because it's in dimensions of meters. You see it coming there. And we actually can select it and scale it down so it's like a centimeter sort of thing, like a toy. Right here, maybe even smaller. So it starts at the right and it walks to the left. Done. That's the whole keyframed motion capture animation. Lots of keyframes actually. When you open this group and only select the hips, you see a keyframe every frame. That's typical for motion capture animation. Anyway, we want to have a turntable camera around our character. And when we, for example, place that group in the center of the scene, it sort of looks and will rotate around our character, but it won't follow our character. Let's start with this. We create a group, an empty group. We create a camera, just a simple camera. We move that camera Let's go to the very beginning, move that camera over here, or over here, and we drag with the middle mouse button the camera into that null group, and we select the null group, and we type in, well, actually let's do it with keyframes again. Set a key at frame number 0, and at frame 120.80 in this case, we want to have a 360-degree rotation. Keyframe is set because I have auto key on. Now the camera rotates around our character, so to say, but not exactly around the camera, not the character. It's very close to the character now. It's very far away from the character now. What does it look like through our camera? Well, this time we use this way to navigate here. This, of course, is not very interesting because we need a camera which is higher up, and we'll do this now. We open that group, and we're free to use these parameters in the camera. So I move the camera up 1.7, for example, and I see our character walk, and he walks a little bit out of the frame, and it's not a very good looking turntable animation because it rotates around one spot and the character moves. And this is easy to fix as well. We deal with a group only, and we don't care about the camera. We don't care at all about the camera. But what we'll do now is we go to the top window, and at the very beginning the character is here, and we just move our group, and that moves the camera, of course, right here, and we set a keyframe, Shift W, for all the three parameters. Actually, we could just keyframe the Z parameter, doesn't really matter. Now we go to the end of the animation, and we reposition our group right here. Keyframe is automatically set, so you see it's only in the Z animation. And now we're looking through that camera, we see that the turntable animation is doing a perfect job. With the freedom of this camera, you can set keyframes here. For example, for the rotation, this kind of rotation, if you want to have this sort of tilt. Let's go to the very beginning and set this to 0 and set a keyframe here. And we set a keyframe at 0 here, but we want to tilt it slightly over here. And later on we want to tilt it back like this, and then the animation goes like this. It's a bit of a drunken camera. So to wrap this up, you need a group, you need a camera, you need to make the camera a child of that group, or the group be a parent of the camera, which is the same thing. And then all you do is create keyframes or expression animation for the y-axis, this axis, the upright axis of that group. You see this is this parameter here. And if your character moves while you rotate around that character, you just keyframe the translation of that group, not of the camera. You can animate the camera, all right, but the camera is a child of the group, so it will always move and rotate with that group. Have a nice day.